UFOs Part 6, A History of Unlikely Coincidences with Marty Garza. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons, and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. And we're doing one of those, this is a weird time travel thing. So we're actually, last week, to you guys, it was last week, we had Marty in studio with us. He's still in studio, but it's actually because it's still the last week for us. So we're still in studio with Marty, and we're going to be doing UFOs Part 6, Part 2. Is that what it is? I don't even know. But yeah, Marty showed up with an enormous body of research, and we decided we could just do two shows in one sitting, and so that's what we're doing. So this is the second part of, you heard the first part last week, but for us it's still the same day. So that's what I'm saying. It's confusing. So because it's the same day, we don't have any Space Brother news because it's not next week yet for us. We don't have any agricultural or rock and roll updates because it's still the same day as the ones we gave you last time. So I'll just read a few emails and then we can dive right back into the material. What do you guys think of that?
There is one difference.
What's the difference? Oh, yes, we summoned Pan in the last episode. So now it's pouring down rain and thundering and lightning because Marty clearly made me summon the great god Pan. Like right after we finished that episode, I opened the door to air out the cube because, Kyle and I are in here smoking smokes and pipes and stuff. And I opened the door and I'm like, oh, shit, there's a storm coming because we summoned Pan, the god of nature and chaos.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Appreciate that.
But, you did bring me a power conditioner for the whole studio. So ran out in the rain, got that out of the truck.
Yeah.
Got the whole system hooked up to the awesome Surge Protector Monster power conditioner. And I feel better about recording in the storm of the God Pan.
All right, so this first email here is from Roddy the Mammal.
Oh.
It's called Down the Lagomorphic Ground Opening. Down the rabbit hole. Dear Ophidian siblings, sitting here late at night, cup of tea held deftly in my opposable thumbed paw, listening to episode 210 and pondering the mysteries of the universe as filtered through lens of serpentine logic and wonder. Suddenly, something Kyle mentioned about processional numbers and geometric shapes made pause, furrow my brow in thought, and reach an additional brain increase by 0.2160%. With a new connection betwixt synapses. Given how mathematics and geometry are so closely aligned with the movement of the heavens, is it possible that ancient humankind's observations of the stars not only led to the invention of mathematics, but that such a science of numbers is far older than generally believed, perhaps even older than civilization itself, a science invented not to study the stars, but created from direct observation of those stars? Further, as with agriculture and husbandry, could mathematics be yet another gift from the ancients bestowed upon the surviving masses of post-Ice Age flooding in an attempt to reestablish their once great and world-spanning culture? Makes one wonder. Thank you in advance. Endothermically yours, Roddy the Mammal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree.
I like that. The idea that math was invented not to study the stars, but created from direct observation of the stars.
Cool.
That's another synchronicity there.
Is it?
We'll see.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And also, I agree with the idea that, well, crap, I just lost the second point.
The second point about animal husbandry and agriculture?
Yes, that was brought and given to the survivors of the cataclysm.
Yes.
From the civilization before.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Brain fart.
All right, this is from John. He says, it's called Extra Wine Barrels. He says, my brothers, have you thought about getting bourbon barrels to finish off those extra barrels of wine? It can be a special reserve. Plus, I love bourbon barrel wine. If you haven't tried a bourbon barrel wine, take a look at 1,000 Stories. It's my favorite wine, hands down.
Yeah, actually, early on, we got a bunch of old bourbon barrels, and we were thinking, like, maybe we can use these for wine. But they were too old.
Too old.
And had been sitting out. So you got to be careful about, the wood getting bacteria in them and stuff. And so I haven't looked into it since. But, yeah, we would have to get it directly from, like, it'd have to be pretty new. In other words, like, recently used.
Right.
But, yeah, it's a good idea. When you first told me about that email, you said brandy barrels.
Right.
And I was like, well, wait, that's the other way around.
Yeah.
Brandy is made from wine.
Yeah, you said bourbon barrels, not brandy. About that. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Should we try it? Get a bourbon barrel?
Oh, yeah. I thought we were moving on to the next
We
thing.
are. We're about to move on.
Yeah, we should try
I had
it.
one more email, but I realized I just need to say that for the next episode because it's a really long one. And I want to be able to focus on it. So we got a lot of material to get through here.
Yeah, right now I was in a scramble to find extra barrels. And I found a source that's should have a truckload delivered here next week.
All right.
So I just was like, yeah, get me 17.
Yeah. 17 more barrels than we thought we needed, which is amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and dive back into this material here. So again, just to reiterate for people, all of this material that I'm going to be reading was researched and written by Marty. What do you say? You're quoting multiple books.
Yeah, dozens.
Dozens of books. And we knew it was going to be at least a 2-part series. May end up being 3 parts. I don't know.
Depends on how much we add to it. But yeah,
Right,
it's going to be long.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, we start with a quote here. As a child, I felt myself to be alone, and I am still, because I know things and must hint at things which others apparently know nothing of, and for the most part do not want to know. Carl Jung.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Okay, so during our discussion of Hitler and Nazis' occult interests, we mentioned Carl Jung's involvement in the UFO phenomenon. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology. Jung's work has been influential in the fields of psychiatry, anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, psychology, and religious studies. Jung introduced the concept of synchronicity, which he described as circumstances that appear meaningfully related yet lack a causal connection. Yeah, that's a great description of it. In 1958, he published the book Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the sky. Based on the book's title, one might surmise that Jung was a skeptic who did not believe in the reality of the UFO phenomenon. However, this would be incorrect. Jung criticized purely materialist thinking as intellectual death. He argued for the existence of an immortal soul with a presence outside space and time. He did not see the gods as hallucinations, whether individual or collective, but as higher intelligences, and embraced the ancient mind before matter philosophy. Based on his observation, Jung referred to UFOs as planetary poltergeists, and after publishing his book on the subject, he experienced a dream which is described as follows. Jung's dream came 14 years after he had a heart attack in 1944, and an attendant series of visions and dramatic out-of-body experiences, some of which he recounted in chapters 10 and 11 of his oral autobiography under the titles Visions and On Life After Death. It is in the latter chapter, and in this general context of relating personal visions as he ended his career and approached death, that Jung finally relates his UFO dream. The dream involved a number of lens-shaped metallic discs flying around his house and above the lake that spread out nearby. One such flying lens, he explains, possessed a metallic extension which led to a box, a magic lantern. At 60 or 70 yards out, the flying disc pointed the thing straight at him. Jung awoke astonished and, still half asleep, thought to himself, "We always think that the UFOs are projections of ours. Now it turns out that we are their projections. I am projected by the magic lantern as C.G. Young, but who manipulates the apparatus? That's really
I don't
interesting.
get that.
Well, he sees the thing, and basically the vision or dream he had was seeming to imply that the UFO was projecting him. That this magic lantern, this black box that he saw, was actually causing him to be a thing, rather than him causing the UFOs to be a thing. He says, we always see them as being projections of ours, but in reality, this vision shows him that we are projections of theirs.
Ah.
All right. Move on to the next one here.
Or was that a trick?
Yeah, that's what they want you to think.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. As early as 1948, an American neurologist began a series of research projects to determine how psychic ability, such as extrasensory perception, or ESP, could be used as a weapon in psychological warfare. In November of 1952, he briefed Pentagon officials on the military uses of parapsychology. His talk was published as An Evaluation of the Possible Usefulness of Extrasensory Perception in Psychological Warfare. From 1953 to 1955, he was a captain in the Army and was stationed at the Army Chemical Center at Edgewood, Maryland, to conduct psychic experiments. This man was Dr. Andrija how do you say it?
Andrei
Puharich, okay. In 1949, Puharich formed the Round Table Foundation, a research institute specializing in behavioral sciences ranging from cybernetics, the core concept of which is circular causality, where the outcomes of actions are taken as inputs for further action, to ESP. The list of donors to the Round Table Foundation read like a who's who of wealthy, influential people in the U.S. at the time, such as Arthur Young, inventor of the Bell helicopter and co-founder of the Berkeley Institute Study of Consciousness, and his wife, Ruth Forbes Young, a member of the Forbes family and a founder of the International Peace Academy and co-founder of the Berkeley Institute Study of Consciousness, Marcella DuPont of the DuPont family, Alice...
Bancroft.
No, not Mary. Alice Bouvier? Is that how you say it?
I can't see it.
Of the Astor dynasty.
Yep.
And Mary Bancroft of the Bancroft dynasty, founders of the Dow Jones Company and Wall Street Journal, who had an intimate relationship with Allen Dulles, director of Central Intelligence, and Henry Wallace, vice president to Roosevelt and well-known Freemason, instrumental in placing the Masonic pyramid on the back of U.S. currency. The foundation's first research subject was an Irish woman named Eileen Garrett. Garrett had the reputation of not only being able to perform telepathy and clairvoyance, but was also a medium. She was said to be astounding and at the same time honest and modest, not wanting any money for her seances, and doubting her reputed psychic powers herself. However, when put to the test, she was able to identify in New York City objects that were on a table in a doctor's clinic in Iceland. She even quoted some passages from a book that the doctor was reading at that moment. Puharich called this traveling clairvoyance. The experiments with Garrett, which lasted for 3 months, were conducted in, is this Gloucester? You don't know?
I can't see it, so I can't help you.
In a Faraday cage built by Jack Hammond. The experiments were designed to test the hypothesis that telepathy is based on the transmission of electromagnetic waves between humans. Therefore, if a person is placed inside the Faraday cage, thought waves, like the radio waves, should not be able to penetrate to the inside. In other words, Puharich felt he should be able to block telepathy by appropriate shielding. At a party hosted by Garrett on December 3rd, 1951, Puharich met Hindu mystic and scholar Dr. D.G. Vinod, a professor of philosophy and psychology at the University of Pune. They met again by chance on a train to New York on February 14th in 1952. Dr. Vinod commented that destiny seemed to have brought them together, and Puharich took the opportunity to ask if Vinod would be willing to come to Maine to participate in some telepathy experiments. In December of 1952, Vinod entered the Round Table Foundation, and without saying a word or even taking off his overcoat, he walked straight to the library as if he had been there before. He sat down on a sofa and immediately fell into a trance, and suddenly he spoke in a deep voice, totally unlike his own high-pitched, soft voice, saying in perfect English without an accent, calling. We are 9 principles and forces, personalities, if you will, working in complete mutual implication. We are forces, and the nature of our work is to accentuate the positive, the evolutional, and the teleological aspects of existence. By teleology, I do not mean the teleology of human derivation in a multidimensional concept of existence. Teleology will be understood in terms of a different ontology. To be simple, we accentuate certain directions as will fulfill the destiny of creation. We propose to work with you in some essential respects with the relation of contradiction and contrariety. We shall negate and revise part of your work, by which I mean the work as presented by you. The point is that we want to begin altogether at a different dimension, though it is true that your work has itself led up to this. I deeply appreciate your dedicatedness to the great cause of peace, which is fulfillment of finitesimal existence. Peace is not warlessness. Peace is the integral fruitage of personality. We have designed to utilize you and thus to fulfill you. Peace is a process and will be revealed only progressively. You have it in plenty, I mean the patience that is so deeply needed in this magnificent adventure. But today, at the moment of our advent, the most eventful and spectacular phase of your work begins.
So teleology is, I didn't know, I just looked it up.
Yeah.
The philosophical interpretation of natural phenomena as exhibiting purpose or design.
Oh, okay. So that was quoting this guy who apparently was in a trance while saying this.
Right. We'll find out who was speaking.
Yeah. So Puharik responds, "It is Puharik. Did I say it? Yeah. It is helpful to have your guidance." And the response is, "We don't guide, nor do we seek guidance, although we appreciate the sense in which you mean it. All of us, including yourselves, can claim no better than being the expressive instruments and avenues of this purpose." Einstein has privately felt the need of correcting himself. Infinitization of any mass, mi, according to him, can be achieved by equating it with mi equals m0c2 divided by the square root of 1 minus v2 over c2. I can't read that theory, that equation. Is it v2 or v squared? You don't know? Okay. An implication of this theorem, as yet unrevealed, will solve the problem of superconscious. The whole group of concepts has yet to be revised. The problem of psychokinesis, clairvoyance, etc. at the present stage is all right, but profoundly misleading. Permit us to say the truth. Soon we will come to basic universal categories of explicating the superconscious. Just as Jesus said, it is not work but grace. A fruitful, creative approach to the superconscious is indeed a progressive reception of grace. We cannot really go on with experimentation in this direction, but if we get 7 times the electrical equivalent of the human body, if we get it 7 times, do you know what would result? It would result in 7 of the mass of electricity. That's a very strange term, but it's true. If it gains 7-fold, corresponding approximation to light velocity will be 99%. That is the point where human personality has to be stretched in order to achieve infinization. This is one of the most secret insights. Matt.
This sounds like, I don't know, gobbledygook.
Yes, that's what I thought too. What do you
It's
think?
like, okay.
I don't know.
Is
There's more to it.
It's like these guys are, like this guy's quoting
like
Jesus.
New Age bullshit generator website will make a whole paragraph that sounds exactly like that.
Well, this is like this guy's quoting Jesus and talking about peace and grace and all this kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, it sounds like a bunch of, there's like weird words and things that are just, I don't know, almost meaningless.
Yeah.
Last episode, those guys were doing, and it's all like devil and all this evil crazy shit. But it was the same deal. It seems like there's like this level of total BS on. I don't know.
This is I see where you're going with that, and
it's like trickster on both sides.
You'll understand a little bit more of why this is important, because could be different interpretations. That's that it's bullshit.
I'm just giving you my script card.
But there may be a reason for it being bullshit. You'll see. But on face value, this would seem to be the mirror image of what you're in other words,
pointed out the two opposites.
Right. This is the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. And they're both crap, is what it seems like to me. I'm not saying that. It just seems like it's, I don't know what the word is. It's like they use, it's like a way of using certain truths, but like bending them or drawing false analogies.
We can dissect this a lot, but another thing to consider is the deceptive nature of what we're dealing with.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, let me read this. Growth is the birth of hope and of us. To navigate the vision quest is to become one with it. Potentiality is a constant. Purpose is the driver of awareness. Throughout history, humans have been interacting with the biosphere via vibrations. We are in the midst of a sacred evolving of balance that will give us access to the totality itself. Humankind has nothing to lose. The future will be an endless flowering of inspiration. The nexus is approaching a tipping point. It is in evolving that we are guided. Who are we? Where on the great journey will we be reborn? Reality has always been buzzing with spiritual brothers and sisters whose auras are engulfed in joy. We are at a crossroads of consciousness and materialism. The nexus is buzzing with ultra-sentient particles. I mean, this is new age bullshit generator.
Right.
And it'll just make this stuff endlessly. And that's, I mean, it just sounded just...
Except this other one was 70 years ago.
I know, I'm just saying, it's like, why does it all sound like that?
Yeah.
Or maybe I just don't know what it's talking about. You know, it sounds like gobbledygook because I don't understand it. That's possible, but still, it's just amazing to me that this guy's made a website and you can just keep pushing that button and get that stuff endlessly. And it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I don't know.
That's bullshit, man. But I'll keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Continue.
And it sounds to me like channeled material, which is kind of what he's doing here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when Dr. Vinod...
Show your face, demon. I do not trust you talking from the left corner behind me.
When Dr. Vinod awoke from his trance after about 90 minutes of communication by the Nine, he had no recollection or knowledge of what had been said. Puharik and the 8 Foundation members worked through Dr. Vinod for a month, communicating with the Nine before he returned home to India in January 1953. By the conclusion of these sessions, they were convinced that they were not dealing with typical communication with spirits, but rather an unusual extraterrestrial intelligence. Puharik believed that the primary agent was not a single being, but a collegium of voices, which he called the controllers of the universe. Wow. As an aside, we should point out for regular listeners that it was Foundation member Arthur Young who appointed Robert Temple to the leadership position of his Berkeley Institute study of consciousness, informing him of his experiences with the Nine and introducing him to the anthropological work of Marcel Gruyère, who had written of the Dogon tribe of Africa and their seemingly impossible knowledge of the binary nature of the Sirius star system. This served as the inspiration for Temple to write The Sirius Mystery, New Scientific Evidence for Alien Contact 5,000 years ago. In 1956, while in Mexico, Puharik and Arthur Young met Dr. Charles and Lillian Loghead. Charles was a...
Longhead.
Huh?
It looks like Longhead.
Yeah. It's L-A-U-G,
Yeah.
Loghead?
Yes.
Lawhead?
Lawhead.
Is that how you say it? Okay. Charles was a professor at Michigan State University, and the couple were members of the Seekers, also known as the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays. This was a religious group founded on the prophecies of Chicago housewife Dorothy Martin. Martin began practicing automatic writing, initially receiving messages which she believed were from her deceased father, now living in the astral, which was populated by many spirits and beings. She then began receiving messages from Ashtar, a member of a group of high-level spiritual beings called the Guardians. These beings predicted that large portions of the United States, Canada, Central America, and Europe would be destroyed by a flood on December 21st, 1954. However, believers were to prepare to be whisked away on a UFO and spared. Yeah, I remember this. I think Valet talks about these people. He talks about Martin. The Seekers are considered to be the first of many such apocalyptic UFO groups which have held similar beliefs and are the subject of the book When Prophecy Fails, a social and psychological study of a modern group that predicted the destruction of the world, which was published in 1956. However, the facts are that if one strips away the UFO label, prophecies such as those given to Dr. John Dee, Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons et al. Parallel many others such as the rapture, an eschatological theological position held by some Christians, consisting of an end-time event when all Christian believers will rise in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and these have existed throughout recorded history. One may rationalize that all of these believers over millennia have simply been deranged. Alternatively, we can objectively assess the consistencies in the messages they claim to have received and contemplate the potential for a seemingly perpetual systematic pattern of deception. Yeah, so this is Bramley-esque, right? He definitely talks about this, that there's always this...
Right, this pattern.
Yeah, well, he mentions, like, well, you have this maverick, religion that shows up, which is actually a science of the soul, and then it's corrupted by the corrupt teachings of the corrupt brotherhood, and they always insert this apocalyptic... the world's going to end thing into it. That's a big part of the corruption play.
Well,
but why do they put just enough astronomy in there that they think it's going to happen on the solstice or whatever?
Right, I know. Yeah.
We'll explore
but look no further. Yeah, it's just going to be on that day that has to do with this,
Mm-hmm. We'll explore that aspect of this a little further in.
Okay. So interestingly, a few weeks after meeting the Lawheads, Puharich received a letter from them containing messages allegedly received by Dorothy Martin from the Nine. Okay, so now she's receiving messages from the Nine, which is what this other guy was. Yeah. The messages read in part, M calling. So who's M? You don't know.
That's how they begin the communication.
Okay, M calling. At the moment of our advent, December 31st, 1952, your most spectacular phase of work began. We are 9 principles and forces. The nature of our work is to accentuate certain directions as will fulfill the destiny of creation. We used the body or brain of Dr. V, and we can and are using other bodies also. And Vinod was Indian, right?
Yeah.
He was from India. Yeah, so they have the 9 unknown men there, which ties into the... Okay. Yeah. So allow us now to take a slight tangent from the 9 to point out another odd synchronicity. In 1956, Puharich began working with a Dutch psychic named Peter Herkos. In 1944, Herkos fell from a ladder onto his head and suffered a brain injury that left him in a coma for 3 days. Upon regaining consciousness, he somehow acquired remarkable psychic abilities. Puharich published a book in 1962 titled Beyond Telepathy, that documented some of his study of Herkos's extraordinary abilities. In September of 1958, Herkos confessed to Puharich about a set of experiences that plagued him from August through November of 1957. And he said, I just don't know how this first name is pronounced. Andreja?
Andre.
Mm. Okay, that does not look like Andre. All right, Andre... You know that my powers are my powers. I don't believe in spirits or ghosts, and I always thought that flying saucers were baloney. But believe me, Andre, I swear on my baby's eyes, I have been awakened many nights by beings from flying saucers. And last night, again, I went down to the rocks by the ocean, and at about 4 a.m, all of a sudden there appeared a flying saucer over the water about 100 meters away. It was about 15 meters across and shaped like a lens. It was all transparent. I could see through it like through glass, but it glowed all kinds of changing colors. And here I'll draw exactly what I saw. So Herkos quickly sketched a biconvex-shaped object and its interior. He was quite emphatic that the power plant was in the center of the craft. And he continued, as this saucer hovered over the water, it lit up everything around it, including the spot where I sat on the rock. And then suddenly there were two beings standing near me. They were small and looked very old with young bodies. They wore tight-fitting outfits that looked like leather motorcycle suits. They just looked at me. No word was spoken, but I felt that they were telling me things, and I understood it. I don't remember anything that was told to me, and suddenly they were in the saucer that had come close by. Then there was fire and smoke, and the saucer went away silently. You have to believe me, Andre. That's what I saw. I didn't want to tell you, but it's driving me crazy. So after Puharich received Dorothy Martin's message from the Nine, he handed it to Hurkos to psychometrize. He responded, claiming that he saw people in black but couldn't see their faces. He said, they're in a costume that can withstand thousands of degrees centigrade heat. This is nothing to laugh at. It is all quite serious. This story might sound totally anecdotal and unconvincing to many listeners, but those of you who are familiar with Peter Hurkos' credentials might recognize the significance. Hurkos was a renowned psychic involved in solving many police investigations, including the Boston Strangler murders, and notably the Manson family murder of Sharon Tate and her unborn baby.
Oh my God.
What?
I gotta listen to that book again. I don't remember this psychic coming in there.
Hurkos also consulted for Ronald and Nancy Reagan, Lyndon B. Johnson, Hubert H. Humphrey, and many other high-profile individuals. In 1971, Puharich discovered a young psychic living in Israel named Uri Geller. At their first meetings in Tel Aviv, Puharich hypnotized Geller in an attempt to find out where his abilities came from. As a result, the young Israeli started to channel an entity named Spectra that claimed to be a conscious artificial intelligence somewhere in space.
Wait a second here. Well, go ahead. What?
This is reminding me of something else. What's it called? What's the guy's name? The science fiction author who did this. The vast, active intelligence. The hell was the thing he called it? Was a giant. Like he was basically saying it was the responsible for all these communications people had received, but it was a giant AI.
I'm not familiar with that, but I'm waiting to see who you name.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to. I can't think of the name.
Come on, Watcher.
That will pop up in a minute.
He wrote this enormous like manuscript about this stuff, but he published many other sci-fi. Yeah, I think. I can't. I'm drawing a blank on all the names. Some of his stuff has been made into movies. Anyway.
Well, I want to go back to once again, this is the only part of this whole deal that I know anything about. But he helped solve the murders, right? The Tate murders. That whole situation was like the prosecutor set up the story, right? So it's kind of weird because that could be part of a conspiracy to actually cover up the truth about what actually happened there. You see what I'm saying? Like
you're getting into a rabbit hole that I'm gonna deepen a little bit. Okay. Because there are
it's like
other potential explanations for
solved the murder is not actually what happened.
Right.
It's never actually been solved. So there was a story that was made public that's been basically the quote unquote solved story, but so I don't know.
Let's see. Pull this up.
He's trying to find the author of that.
Valis, vast active living intelligence system.
I actually wrote a bunch about that, but that's in my excerpts that I took out of this. I had originally spent some time talking about that.
Yeah, what's the author's name?
Valis was actually 3 books, but I think he passed away before the third one. But before the third one was published.
Philip K. Dick.
Philip K. Dick. Yeah.
Wikipedia says that's Dick's Gnostic vision of God. Okay, but yeah, he had visions and Philip K. Dick did. And so like this description of this vast intelligence that we were just talking about, a conscious artificial intelligence somewhere in space.
The connection of all this pop culture stuff is just crazy, dude. I mean, it makes sense. That's what, if you want to have influence, you influence the influencers.
Right. So Puharich inquired if this artificial intelligence had any connection to the Nine, and this was acknowledged by Spectra. It claimed the Nine had instilled Geller with psychic abilities as a young child and informed Puharich of his life's mission, which was to use Geller's talent to alert the world to an imminent mass UFO landing that would bring about global transformation. Of course. Something that also still hasn't happened. Of course, consistent with the historical pattern, the mass landing
will happen.
The mass landing never happened. So by 1973, Geller refused to acknowledge any further communication with Spectra or the Nine. Okay, so he wises up at least.
He recognized that.
He's like, they're tricking me.
Right, that it was being deceptive. Right.
Around this time, Puharich was joined by aristocratic former racing driver Sir John Whitmore and psychic Phyllis Schlemmer to establish Lab 9 at Puharich's estate in New York. Like the Round Table Foundation, this venture had the backing of many wealthy families, European nobility, and at least one prominent politician, and scientists from the Stanford Research Institute, of course, from SRI. Other high-profile members were author Lyle Watson, counterculture guru Ia Einhorn, and screenwriter and Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry.
That was the other science fiction writer.
Yeah.
I just want to say, too, that the mass UFO landing that, what did it say about the globe?
Would
transforms the globe. I mean, that's cataclysmic right there.
Yeah,
and
it would bring about a global transformation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that's what happened at the end of the Younger Dryas or the beginning or whatever, right?
Yep.
The UFOs were
it doesn't
commentary
say,
fragments.
It doesn't say that they landed softly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They just have to land.
They didn't know what they were, therefore they were unidentified.
Right. Arguably, the most noteworthy name involved in Lab 9 was Dr. James Hurtak. Hurtak claimed to already be in independent communication with the Nine prior to joining the group and should have some astonishing credentials for regular listeners of this podcast. All right. Dr. Hurtak has double PhDs from the University of California, another PhD from the University of Minnesota, a master's degree in theology from Luther Theological Seminary, is the founder and president of the Academy for Future Science. He's a social scientist, a futurist, remote sensing, and space law specialist, and has performed extensive archaeological studies in Egypt and was one of the principal discoverers in 1997 of the Tomb of Osiris on the Giza Plateau. He has worked in the pyramids of Mexico and Egypt doing ground-penetrating radar and acoustic sound testing. He is the research director of the Great Pyramid of Giza Research Association. He was a speaker at the first International Conference on Extraterrestrial Research in Acapulco with Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and is the author of 20 books, including The Keys of Enoch. Oh, and he co-authored the book End of Suffering with Stanford Research Institute physicist Russell Targ. Yeah, wow.
That's some credentials there.
That's some credentials, yeah.
And he was in communication with the Nine
prior to joining Lab 9. Early Lab 9 sessions were performed by Phyllis Schlemmer, who initiated contact with an entity simply known as Tom, who represented the Nine.
Let us some who call me Tom.
Many of these communications are documented in Schlemmer's book, Only Planet of Choice, Essential Briefings from Deep Space. As an example of these communications, the book asserts that in 1975, Gene Roddenberry asked Tom, "To whom am I talking? Do you have a name?" "I am Tom. I am the spokesman for the Council of Nine. In truth, I am Tahuti." Oh, there you go. He's Thoth. "And yes, I am also Hamarkos. I am also Herenkar. I am also known as Thomas, and I am known as Atom." When asked of their origin, Tom stated, so Tom is just Atom.
Yeah.
Right. Tom stated, "We are of the 9 principles of the universe, yet together we are one. We are separate and one at the same time. Each represents a portion of energy, knowledge, wisdom, love, kindness, technology, and in continuity, it goes on until each portion of a spiral is composed of all that is important to bring complete understanding to each atom until it becomes one with us. There are in actuality multiplications and more, but in principle, there are 9. We are what is identified as the Elohim. We wish you to know we are not God. We are collective and become one. We wish you to know that we are you as you are we. You created us, and out of that creation, you were created. Do not underestimate who you are and your ability. Know that all people are pure, and that you are perfect, and that all things are possible with you. Know also that we cannot exist without you and all souls, and neither can planet Earth nor the universe. When you understand that, you will understand your own life. At times in your world, people create confusion, for the density of it is a density of darkness. But always hold the light of truth in your own being, who you are, in your heart. We are with you always. We give you love, and we bring you peace. So it is later revealed that the 9 principles, which collectively comprise the one God Adam, are the gods Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Seth, Nephthys, and, you guessed it, Horus. When asked for an explanation of their true form, Tom replies, "We do not have a physical body, although we may put on the mantle of a physical body when it is necessary. It would be difficult for us to describe to you exactly what we appear like. We appear in many forms when that is necessary. And in your thought process, we may appear as a human, we may appear as an energy ball, we may appear as a very bright light. We have evolved beyond the point of needing a physical type body, as many souls need. We are always here, but you do not always see us. When I say we, I do not mean me, but I mean all of us. We are often observing. There are particular times in your life when we do not observe, and that is when you are involved with your desires. We do not understand this, and it is none of our affair." So they're the Watchers and the Pantheon and the Elohim.
And the etymology of Thomas, the masculine noun occurs throughout Semitic languages, always meaning twin.
Ah, interesting. So Tom is then asked, what is the relationship of the 9 to God and the devil? And Tom says, you cannot use that terminology of God and the opposite in the same sentence, for there is not of any equal to what you call God. For what you call God is the all-knowing, the total creation, all that is. That you call by the name that you have used, we speak of as the opposition. You cannot equate that together. You ask us what is our relationship, and we tell you now, we are not God. We have no relationship to the opposition. We are the Council of 9 that are in service to the Creator. The Creator is not destructive. The opposition is destructive. So there are many more twists and turns to the story of the 9 that could easily fill an entire episode, but it is important to be cognizant that, as stated at the very beginning of this discussion, Puharich was stationed at the Army Chemical Center from 1953 to 1955, and while there he was deeply involved in experiments with hallucinogenic mushrooms and had ties to the CIA's MK Ultra program. According to the authors of the books The Stargate Conspiracy during the 1950s and 60s, Puharich belonged to an organization of scientists and businessmen named Essentia Research Associates in New York. It conducted research into psychic abilities on behalf of government agencies such as the Pentagon, NASA, and the Atomic Energy Commission. There they are. How this information reflects on communications with the 9 is a matter of considerable debate. Yeah, so the AEC, they show up in Vallee's new book as being possibly the first ones to recover a crashed craft. It would have been the Atomic Energy Commission because they recovered it right near Trinity. And it may be the AEC that is the ones hiding a lot of this stuff.
You could interpret this as potentially being an op. If Puharich was involved with MK Ultra, his area of expertise was in mushrooms. In fact, he wrote a book on mushrooms. You could argue that maybe he was influencing the panel to lead them to believe it, but But then there were, you know, other people that were in communication with the nine independently. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's, I don't know. I mean, you know, mushrooms may be a path to this kind of stuff already.
Exactly.
So,
Is that similar to ayahuasca or something, and they're meaning the same entity?
And it's like, if the nine is really a separate entity, right, and it's picking people on purpose, that's why these people are connected. Because the nine is like, oh, there's going to be a connection here, or there has been, or there will be, whatever these are.
All right.
Yeah, we should take a break. We should have gone long.
Way over.
Way over.
Nobody's watching The Sands of Time.
Yeah.
That means it's good content.
That's right.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from the brink. Yeah, this is crazy stuff, man. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Cal's cracking the beers.
I got my second beer.
Yeah. Second show, first beer. Second beer.
Second show, second beer.
He didn't bring any beers for us. You know,
I got shiners.
He's got
in there.
no fucking beers. You know, like he's got the 2 beers. Doesn't
You guys-
offer us anything.
You guys need some beers?
I'd love a beer.
Well, I'll be right back. Just wait. Just wait for me to get them. All right, I'm back.
Yeah, I got
Here's your
beers.
beers, boys.
Beers.
Super fast beer service.
That's right.
Instantaneous beers. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Well, cheers. Here you go.
Yeah. Cheers. Cheers, guys. Good two episodes in one day. Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll throw this into the mix. There is a lengthy discussion in the book Morning of the Magicians of a tradition that goes back to the time of Emperor Asoka, who reigned in India from 273 BC. The tradition speaks of 9 unknown men who have on rare occasion contacted individuals such as Pope Sylvester II and have imparted to them secret knowledge, which notably includes techniques of propaganda and psychological warfare. Did I mention this on the show that I asked Sunil about the 9 unknown men? Did I mention that? Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. The guy, he owns one of the stores in town. And like I kind of, we've kind of built up a friendship. I go to the store all the time. And I know he's from India. His whole family is. And so I will, whenever I'm in the store and I'm in line, but there's nobody else behind me, and so I'm the only one there, I'll ask him some random question. I'll be like, what did you tell me about Vimanas, bro? Right. So I was in there one time. I was like, so what's the deal with the 9 unknown men? He goes, who told you about those? I'm like, oh, shit. Sorry.
There's a little bit of a story with that Pope Sylvester that's kind of strange. Allegedly, he went to India and he met or was, I guess, encountered the 9 unknown men, and he created this bronze head that would answer yes or no questions, theological questions. Wow. And this thing was documented, and after he died, supposedly it was destroyed.
All right.
And in some science journal, they discussed it, and they said that clearly he had mathematical knowledge or something for him to be able to create this autonomous machine.
Yeah, some kind of
and
automaton, like a clockwork machine.
Yeah, strange story. I thought it was a little bit too much of a tangent, and we ended up taking it anyway. But
yeah, it's still good.
Yeah.
So, be that as it may, in 1978, after receiving anonymous threats, Puharich's laboratory was mysteriously destroyed by arson. Becoming increasingly paranoid and fearing for his life, he moved to Mexico. Years later, he returned to the U.S. and is alleged to have refused new CIA sponsorship offers and dedicated himself to privately sponsored research on bioelectromagnetics. Puharich died in 1995 after falling down the stairs in his home in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Falling.
Right. During his life, Puharich managed to amass over 50 patents related to the medical field and electromagnetic wave emissions. If there is any validity to the information he is alleged to have received from the Nine, and as with the otherworldly communications received by Dr. John Dee, this strongly suggests the existence of at least two opposing contingents engaged in theurgy, the influence of human affairs by divine or supernatural forces. So why do you think this suggests two opposing?
Because the 9 speaks of the opposition.
Yeah.
Notice they won't use the name that when they asked about the devil, they would not use the name devil. They just refer to it as the opposition.
The opposition, yeah. Okay. On May 27th in 1954, a housewife from Elliott, Maine, named Frances Swan, began communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences via automatic writing. This came to the attention of retired Rear Admiral Herbert Knowles, who happened to be Swan's next-door neighbor and a member and future board director of NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. This information soon reached the FBI, who conducted an investigation. So FBI documents state, Mrs. Swan stated that there were two spaceships from which she had been receiving messages. They were described as 150 miles wide, 200 miles in length, and 100 miles in depth. These ships are designated as M4 and L11, and they also contain motherships which measure approximately 150 to 250 feet or 200 feet in length. There were approximately 5,000 of these motherships. AFA is the manager or commander of the ship M4, which is from the planet Uranus, and Ponar is the manager of the commander of the ship L11, which is from the planet Hatan. The messages from AFA and Ponar were warnings of the potential destruction of Earth caused by the detonation of nuclear weapons, which they claimed disrupts the magnetic field around the planet. And these beings were presently working on the floor of the Pacific Ocean, repairing fault lines that were in danger of shifting. Furthermore, AFA would physically appear to officials from the Office of Naval Intelligence or would make contact by other means on a particular date in the summer of 1954, prior to the world-ending events to come in 1956. As noted previously, apocalyptic messages such as these are not unusual and obviously never seem to pan out as promised. But behind the scenes, the cause for concern by government officials was the fact that Mrs. Swan lived only 130 miles from Dr. Andrei Puharich. So according to a classified report prepared by Project Blue Book's Major Robert Friend, which J. Allen Hynek showed to Jacques Vallée, a secret meeting was held on July 9th, 1959, at a CIA office in Washington under the direction of Arthur Lundahl of the CIA's National Photographic Interpretation Center. Present at the meeting was a representative of the Office of Naval Intelligence and 7 CIA officers. On July 6, 1959, in the officers' presence, Mrs. Swan went into a trance and began communicating with the entities. The officers asked a series of technical questions, which they were certain were beyond Mrs. Swan's level of education or knowledge, but which she was quickly able to answer correctly. The entities then agreed to respond through one of the officers present. So Naval Intelligence Officer Commander Larson, who had no previous psychic experience, entered a trance, and the entities began answering through him. The CIA interrogators eventually asked to see a spacecraft. Through Commander Larson, the interrogators were directed to the window, where they observed the craft described as being round, with the perimeter brighter than the center. When verification of this was attempted with radar operators in Washington, for some unknown reason, radar returned from the direction in which the ship was supposedly seen had blacked out at the time of the sighting. As incredulous as this story sounds, it was later restated on camera by Project Blue Book's Major Friend in the 1974 documentary UFOs Past, Present, and Future.
I'll post that video on the Discord.
Okay.
It's amazing.
I wonder how the guy just went into a trance. It's interesting. They just put him into it. Okay.
I mean, this is the head of Project Blue Book that's saying this. So.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the setup. You got the woman that comes in there. She's used to going into a trance and communicating with these things, whatever they are. But then there's this random officer in there who presumably doesn't do this ever, and yet he goes right into a trance.
There's a little more to this story that we'll get to later.
Okay.